We've got some great presentations today, as well as a continued raffle. And so with that, I'd like to do a little bit of an introduction. That's me. I'm welcoming you. We might have a few people coming in a few minutes, so I will talk for a little bit longer than I normally would to let everybody get here. But thank you all for coming out. I think the Friday thing is working very well, and I'm excited that we get such a good turnout and that everybody is enjoying themselves and the food and the venue. So today we're going to talk about a few things. First, we're going to do an intro regarding Walmart Labs from Jessica Lang. I'm going to bring her up here in a minute, or Jessica Yang, sorry. Then we're going to cover deployment. So survey results. We got a pretty good response from that, and deployment was one of the key areas people wanted to hear about. And so we're going to do kind of a two-part deployment. This month we're going to have Niall from IBM present deployment on the IBM system, and then next month I'm going to present deployment with AWS. Probably going to have to break AWS into two separate ones to cover both the client and the server. Anybody that's done AWS before knows it can be a little in-depth, and there can be a lot of configuration to do. So we'll split that one. After we talk about deployment today, we're going to get into career development with Mike Davis. He's from Walmart Labs. He's going to talk about career development from his standpoint. And then we might have a couple people coming up to talk about opportunities at Walmart. So that may happen at some time throughout the meetup after Mike's presentation. Then we're going to continue with our raffles. So we've got, of course, Andrew Mead, Front-End Masters. We've got Stephen Grider, Tyler McGinnis, and Wes Bos. I will say Stephen Grider, Tyler McGinnis, and Wes Bos, I know, have new tutorials coming out, and so there's some exciting stuff going on from their standpoint. I want to say Front-End Masters always has stuff coming out. And I think Andrew Mead has some new stuff coming out as well, but I'm just familiar with the last three there. And then, of course, at the end, we'll do some time for mingling so everybody can get to know everybody else. And that was one of the key points that people liked about the meetup as well, is the opportunity to network and meet other developers in the area. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jessica Yang with Walmart.
Hi, everyone. I'm here representing Walmart and kind of our Women in Tech group, too. We joined together with IBM and Full Stack Lunch to host, this is, I think, our second event here. So thank you for coming. So thank you to Niall and to Paul. I just wanted to let you know that we have some job opportunities, actually. We have some by the sign over by the door over there. And we also have some other job opportunities that we're going to talk about at the end of the meetup today. So please stick around if you're interested in hearing about that. And one thing that I wanted to note is that regarding the parking situation, just so you know, at the beginning of the talk, if you parked over there, it's okay. And over there, there were some signs that show there's no Walmart Labs parking, so make sure you park in front of that line. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you to all our speakers, and I hope you enjoy.
Okay, with that, we're going to get Niall up. So he works with IBM, and Niall is a senior software engineer with them. He's going to talk about the IBM Cloud, some amazing stuff going on. I got to see firsthand some of the stuff they've done to ease deployment, and it's really amazing stuff. So with that, Niall?
Okay, so let me get started here. So I don't know if you've heard of IBM Bluemix before. It's what IBM Cloud used to be called. And if any of you know IBM, every year or two, we like to change the name of all our products. We get new executives in charge. They say, I need to put my brand on this product. Let's change the name. So now Bluemix is called IBM Cloud. And when you go to IBMcloud.com, it takes you to Bluemix. So it's going to change eventually, but it's a process. And let's jump right in. A few things I need to get out the way first. That this is my opinion on deployment, not IBM's official opinion on deployment. There's one that's much more complex. This is one example of how to accomplish a task. This is a simple example to get started, because I didn't want to take up 2 sessions and 2 hours doing just one deployment. The process is subject to change, of course, and it hasn't been tested on Windows. We've done it from Mac, so this works from a Mac. And those of you that brought your Macs, if you want to, you can follow along and try it out. And that's Mac too. Okay. I don't see any Windows PCs. Also, there could be other configuration issues depending on how your laptop's set up and so on, but we can talk about that offline. So let's jump right in. Thought maybe I should kind of explain the cloud chart that I'm sure people have seen before, the cloud architecture. And we're going to be talking about this little section down here of deployment. And IBM, of course, has a private cloud and a public cloud. And private is basically companies like Walmart might not want all this stuff out there in the public cloud. They want it private. You can even have it hosted on your network, and we VPN in and manage it on your network for you. We also stick a security layer out in front because we find people deploying things to the cloud don't fully understand the cloud and how it works, and leave lots of holes. So one of the things we did was just slap a security layer on front to take care of those things that people overlook a lot. And you can configure it and make it as complex or as simple as you want. Our cloud lets you do bare metal machines, virtual machines. You can have dedicated machines. You can have VMs. You can use shared machines. You can spin up Docker instances, Kubernetes instances, all that stuff. And then, of course, it provides lots of different services. So like object storage, file storage, block storage, certificate management, containers, and all the good stuff. And then I'm sure you guys have heard about Watson. Watson's part of our cloud. So you can integrate artificial intelligence into your applications now with all kinds of plugins or services that Watson provides to the cloud. And this part about deep data governance, you can just ignore that, but it's basically procedure around how you do everything. And just to be fair, it's not that different from Amazon's cloud. Now, I couldn't find a nice, clean, crisp image. This is one of the few I could find for Amazon. I'll show you another one as well. But this is just how they break it up. And as you can see, they have the same type of thing: storage, compute nodes, their network layer, database. And they break it out into infrastructure layer, similar to the way we do. So basically, your cloud is a cloud operating system, just like your computer's operating system, and a bunch of little applications doing their tasks. Nothing groundbreaking about it. It's just you're not doing all the tasks manually. It's a lot of automation that has been written into it. And when you deploy things on Amazon's cloud, you hook into their automation the way they've laid out their scripts to work. On ours, it's the same way. We put together our cloud, we put together scripts that do different things, and we build an interface around it so it makes your life easier or more difficult. Depends on how you look at it. And this is just another representation of Amazon's cloud. So I didn't want to totally bias you toward IBM. Is the competition some? I don't know, airtime. So one other thing, their cloud, theirs is based on Elastic Beanstalk and this new cloud formation. Ours is based on a couple of different things. So we have our cloud operating system. We have Cloud Foundry, which is an open source cloud environment. We also have VMware. We also have different customized environmental templates. And then we have our own container orchestration set up as well. But I'm going to focus on Cloud Foundry because it's open source. And one of the things about Cloud Foundry is it's, like I said, open source, but it allows you to use applications you're familiar with. So things that are out there in open source, so like Tomcat, PHP, all the stuff you're used to is available on Cloud Foundry. It'll run in our cloud. What that means is people come use our cloud, they don't like it, they can pick up, they can go use somebody else's cloud. We're fine with that. We don't lock you into proprietary APIs. Like, well, not point fingers. I'll be nice. Okay. So the application I'm going to deploy is going to be a simple to-do list application. I know, yes, another to-do list application. We see them all the time. That's because they're easy. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because it's an application that you guys can go to that URL. You can download the source code for it if you want to follow along. The front end is going to be React.js. The back end is going to be Node.js. And for the database, I'm using Cloud, which is similar to MongoDB. It's just a NoSQL database, but it's forked from CouchDB. And Cloud is just IBM's version of CouchDB. So, does anybody want to get that URL before I go ahead? Or everybody's cool? Okay. So, these are the steps to deploying to IBM's Cloud. 3 steps with a lot of little sub-steps in there. So, you set up the cloud environment, you configure your application for IBM Cloud, then you deploy the application to IBM Cloud. And step 1, as always, you create your account. So you start off by creating a free account. I'm not going to go through that because I already have an account created. But that's where you would start. You go to ibmcloud.com, set up an account, fill out the little form, short form, few bits of information, no credit card required. So you just fill it out, get started, and you'll get a little confirmation email, and you can start. And it's going to take you to a screen like this. And my next slides just walk you through step by step, but I thought it might be more interesting to do it live. So as long as nothing breaks, I'm going to do it live for you. So let me go here and get this up on the screen for you. There we go. That's good enough. So I went to ibmcloud.com, which redirected me here, of course. I go to my dashboard. And after you finish registering, you'll see a screen like this. You go up here, you create your resource. Oh, actually, let me back up a step. I should have just mirrored the screen. Okay. So up here, what it does is sets up organization spaces and so on for you. And that looks kind of weird. Or does it look weird? Yeah, it's my account. Okay. Let's go to my demo space. So you can have like different workspaces in here. And if I go create a resource, what I want to do is create a Node.js application. Node.js, Cloud DB Web Starter, and all of the choices are like this. So you want to use object storage, container registry, you want to do API Connect, you want to do just plain Node.js without any database behind it, you want to work with PHP, Python, Ruby, Go, whatever. You just choose it. But I want to do Node.js with Cloud. Okay? Then I give it a name. Let's call it, it's going to be a to-do application. And then you set up the host name for it. And since to-do was probably taken, I'm going to use to-do and then my name, Niall. And that's it. And you can see down here the cost of that, free. If I want to go to a higher tier, there's more, but I want to go with the free tier. And that's going to give me an SDK for Node.js and a Cloud NoSQL database. So I hit create. It goes off, it does this thing. So what it's going to do now is spin up the environments for me. It's going to create the database. Oh, okay. My name's popular today. Oops. Let's change it to that. Okay, great. So it's going off, it's going to create the database, create the Node.js instance. It's going to spin those up and start those environments for me. Then it's going to take me to a getting started screen. And it shouldn't take too long. There we go. Okay, so my environment's up, or in this case, as it says, starting still. It's going to give me a link to go to the URL. and a few things I can download and configure on my machine. So I can download the Bluemix command line interface, and I can even download a starter project if I want. I don't want to do that because I have those on my machine already, but you can do that. And then it gives you the steps on what you do to create your application, how to deploy it, how to configure it, and so on, step by step. Then if you want to, you can set up continuous delivery, or like I'm going to do the command line interface. So that takes care of setting up your environment. So step 2, if you remember my 3 points, is configure your application. So let me get this up there for you. Configuring my application simply involves those lines. You create a manifest.yml file in the root of your project to describe your application. You tell the name of your application, how many instances you want to spin up, and how much memory it's going to take. Being this is a free plan, we give you 256 meg, and if it goes above that and you try and deploy, it's going to fail. You can do 2 instances at 128, whatever, but you get 256. What else is worth mentioning here? Well, that's all it takes to configure it, and I'm going to come back and show you some other stuff after we do the deployment, because I know you want to see it work. So that takes care of step 2, configuring my application. Next step is to actually get this thing up and deployed. So if I do a new window here, okay, take this over here. So you can kind of see through that, can't you? Let me change that a bit. Okay. So I downloaded the Cloud Foundry command line, or the Bluemix command line interface. And to do that, to use it, I just unzipped it. I didn't want to install it. I'm not one of those people that likes to install things globally on his machine. So it's in my downloads directory. It's in the Cloud Foundry. And I want to tell Bluemix which API I want to use. And on the Getting Started screen, it shows you the APIs. And I have to remember I'm using which window here. There we go. And I need to copy something here from my clipboard. Okay. So this is the API I want to use. And for whatever reason, I missed the beginning of it. And that's just telling it I want to use the Bluemix API, the public one, because we also have a private one for internal use. And it gives you that response back. Next thing I want to do is log in, which is really complicated. You just type log in here, and it asks for your email. And notice I'm not using an IBM email because I wanted you to see what the public account looks like. My personal IBM account has extra stuff that you have to pay to get to see and use. Password. Okay. So then once it connects, it's going to ask me what space I want to connect to. I want to connect to my demo space that I set up. Okay, I'm connected. Next step is to actually go to where my code is. Okay. And now tell it to push my code out to the server. So now it's going to push that code out to the server. That's going to take a minute or two. What it does is it takes your code, it FTPs it up to the server. It then unpackages up on the server, downloads a bunch of packages that you might need for building. Then it starts installing binaries. It looks at your package JSON. I specify what Node.js version I wanted to use, so it's downloading that version of Node. Then it's going to install my Node modules from the package JSON. And then you're going to see a list of all the modules installed, and then it'll try and package that up into a Docker container and start it up. Well, actually, I think it's a Kubernetes container now. That's one of the nice things. You don't care what the container is. You just care that it works. And that's probably going to take a second or so. So in the meantime, let me show you the application a little bit. It's a basic to-do list application. I have my back end, my server side, and my client side. It's a React application. It's a simple to-do list. And I'm using Axios to call the back end. Nothing complicated in there. So as a to-do list, you can add an item, you can remove an item, and of course, show the list. And then on the server side for Cloudant, we have what's called a VCAP services file. So instead of dealing with database credentials, it creates this VCAP services file. I can copy it to my local environment. So I copy it to my local environment. It has all my connection credentials in it. And I just check to see up here, if it's already in the environment, then use it. If not, pull in my local file. That way I deal with working local versus on the server. And then connect to my database, set up my routes for insert, getting all the tasks, or deleting a task. And that's pretty much the entire application. And of course, I use Webpack to package the whole thing and so on. Let's get back to our deployment. And where is it? Those succeeded. That's a good thing.
This is part of like the automation, kind of each one of the automation features.
Yeah. So now it shows you the packages that my package JSON specified. And it pulled those in, and it should show you the whole list of what else to pull in, all the dependencies that you normally see with npm install, or I think Yarn does the same thing. Never use Yarn, but hopefully it's faster. Yeah. Now, not sure why it's taking quite so long. Maybe it's Friday and a little bit busy. Maybe nobody brought them pizza, so the mics are running a little slow. Okay. Let me show you a couple other things while we wait. If I go back here, I can view my runtime. And you can see the credentials I told you about. They're already in here for me. It generated those when it connected the database to my Node.js instance and put it in this VCAP services. So these are on the server. And the copying, I just hit this button, it copies it, and I go paste it locally. And that's the way it works with additional services. So if you need to connect to object storage, there'll be another section in here for object storage credentials and so on. And if you want to change it, you go to that service, change the credentials, it'll reflect back here for you. So you don't have to deal with managing all these IDs and passwords that are too long to think of and remember. Okay, so it finished doing everything, started my application, and it's running. So if all that worked, I should be able to click on this and see my application, hopefully. Okay, so it works. And I can add a task to my list. And I can add another task and yet another task. And I wanted this to be extremely simple, so if I want to say a task is complete, I just click on it, it goes away. And to prove it's really in a database and not just smoke and mirrors, let me go and open another browser. Oh, it's over here. Let's try Firefox. And, oh, it's down here. Okay, move that over there, and there it is. So that's all it is to deploy an application. As they get more complex, you add more, like if you have a front end and a back end that go on separate servers, in that YML file, the YAML file, you just specify the name of each application, and Bluemix knows to map the application to the application in your workspace and deploy accordingly. We tried to think about the developer and all the headaches we go through writing code and getting things working, so we tried to make deployment easier. So I think, let me go back to my presentation, see if I left anything out. And this presentation will be out there in case you guys want to do this yourselves later. So I created the resource, picked the Node.js Cloud and Starter, named the application, pointed out the tools, showed you how to configure it, the deployment command, the responses you'll see when you log in, and the actual push to the server, the push to the cloud, what you see when it's done. We tested it out, and that's it for it. Deployment on our cloud. Questions?
Is that a public domain? Did you have, like, where did you buy, like,
That's public.
part of the process?
Yeah. So if you notice, the domain they put it on was bluemix.net or mybluemix.net, and they also put a valid SSL certificate. So you can also customize the domain, of course. You use your domain, your SSL certificate, and upload it. But out of the box, we give you one. What is that to-do-? Oh, it is to-do-nile2.mybluemix.net. Yep. You got the URL? The URL correct?
Now, question: the 256 memory or size of the server, is that with the database?
That's total.
That's total.
Okay, so the database lives on the cloud. So it's a cloud instance out there. Database space and memory doesn't count in the 256.
Okay.
What counts is the memory for your Node.js instance.
Got it. So what's the limit for like a free version for like storage?
Storage?
Or so you get memory 256 megabytes, right?
Right.
What about storage and like CPUs? Like, just goes off memory?
I think you can do 2 CPUs or 2 instances. Let's go look at the cloud and see what the limits are. Because I'm a little biased. I tend not to pay attention to limits. And I do have limits, but whenever I hit a limit, I send the email and get it raised. So let's see what it says here. Okay, so the cloud and database. I can go into it, and it should show me the plan I have. So 1 gig of storage, 20 lookup. Oh, it's rate limited. 20 lookups per second, 10 writes per second. If you noticed in my code, I had this thing in there. because on the free tier, you can hit that rate limit pretty fast if you're doing a lot of queries. So that just forces it to retry instead of giving you an error. And of course, there's different setups. You have a standard plan. We get 20 gig of free storage you get 20 gig of free storage and then $1 per gig after that. Or you can get dedicated hardware, and that's really pricey. $5,000 per instance. But for developing and testing things out, this is plenty. So. And then if I go back to this tier, shows me my runtime cost, shows me what happened when my app is started, and I know it's a free tier, but it's not showing me the plan information. It showed me the plan information when I started it. That's right.
Does that ever expire? Or is it free?
It's free forever.
Forever?
Yeah. Now, one thing, if you don't use it for 10 days, it goes to sleep. So.
What about the log? So it's monitoring the performance too?
Mm-hmm.
It's monitoring.
Yeah, that comes out of the box, monitoring. At least it should. There should be a spinner or something going. There's not. It's my logs. And it logs your application logs and also anything that happens in the cloud related to your application. So this is all my deployment, as you can see. But monitoring, there it is. Just take a little hallway cut. Monitoring, I know they used, what is it? Kibana, I think it is?
I saw it in the logs.
Oh. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
The activity has to be development.
Pardon me?
You say 10 days of development in activity.
Right.
That means updates to the code, right?
Exactly. I guess they don't want you to set up the application free and just let it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you actually need to create a new application, it's not an issue.
I thought
I was thinking
okay,
like
request,
Heroku, like Heroku that goes to sleep after half an hour of inactivity in general.
Yeah.
Yes, like
I mean,
but if you visit it,
I think it's a little bit more money oriented.
but to sleep, it can awaken.
You can awaken it by deploying code.
But if somebody wants to visit it,
Nope.
job.
No, awaken it by deploying code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah. And you can write a script to just run and redeploy the same thing every day to solve that problem. But I don't know what's going on with the activity monitor. Maybe since we just set it up, it's not ready yet, or something.
Do we see if you go back to logs, that view Kibana?
Yeah. And I don't have any visualizations set up yet. Did it discover? I don't think it was showing anything.
It's searching.
Oh.
It's searching the top. There's like a little
Yeah.
little small bar.
Okay.
There you go. All the logs, yeah. It's like a log.
I've never used it.
I started using it like a whole album.
What's your expected? Questions? Oh, yeah. More questions? Okay, so you're up next. I know I have your window here somewhere. Okay. I guess I did close it.
for those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Davis. I've been a full-time developer since 2008, and this is my talk on, even though it says career development, career advice. But as I was actually writing it, I realized it was pretty much on things I've screwed up over the last 10 years of my career and want you guys to know. So the first thing is pretty much everyone needs to get a job at some point, right? Like either you're getting your first job, finding a new job. By the way, why is there like so much open space? It's really weird. Anyway.
They don't want to overwhelm you by sitting.
It's true. I appreciate that. Well, the chairs are coming in. No. And so basically either getting a new job, switching jobs, switching to something completely new, we all have to start somewhere. And so whenever I'm sort of trying to figure out what to do next, the first thing I sort of do is figure out what's actually in demand. And just an example, Stack Overflow does a survey every year. They just came out with it like last month. And it sort of shows you what the trends are, what's trending up, what's trending down. It also gives you a lot of stuff, so like when developers wake up in the morning, which is kind of weird. But basically, it gives you an idea of sort of where things are going, and maybe if you're interested in a certain area, what tools you should learn. So once you sort of figure out kind of what you want to focus on, the next thing is meetups. So you're already doing this part. But going to meetups, sort of figuring out what companies are looking for, especially in the local area, it's really helpful because so like San Diego JS has a like who's hiring, who's looking portion of the sort of meetup. And one, you sort of figure out what people are looking for, but two, if you see someone like sort of looking for 2 months and they have a certain skill set, maybe that skill set isn't really in demand in that area, so avoid that. But you can also sort of figure out what companies are like by just talking with people. So during the mingle portion of this, if you're interested in like maybe what different companies are like internally, or what culture, what the teams are structured like, it's just a great opportunity to sort of get to know what a company is like from a developer rather than like the PR person or the interview panel or whatever. And lastly, if you get to know someone at a company that you're interested in, you sort of have your foot in the door and can basically get maybe someone to either pass on your interview or even vouch for you if you know them well enough. All right, so maybe you know what company you're into. You sort of know what technologies you want to use. So next up is GitHub. Obviously, LinkedIn is sort of like the resume thing, but for GitHub, it sort of shows you what you can actually do versus LinkedIn, which is I can edit, say, basically, I do Hadoop and stuff, even though I don't. GitHub, you can show, like, I worked on this, I built this. No offense to Niall, but to do apps, maybe not the best thing to put on your GitHub. But building an app, and to-do apps are great for like sort of learning stuff, right? But if everybody does a to-do app on their GitHub profile, it's not really that impressive. And it's really just any kind of like go-to thing. So like Socket.io back in the day for like Node, the default app is like a chat app. And so if you have a bunch of Socket.io chat apps on your GitHub profile, as a interviewer, I don't really care. If you have something interesting with Socket.io though, building an app that you're like into, it's really helpful because one, you usually sort of get into different sets of problems than you would for like the one explicit app. Like a to-do app is obviously meant to like have user interaction, but you don't really care about maybe logging or error reporting or something like that. Whereas a app that you're actually building for yourself, you actually might care about that. You might add like logging, maybe authentication, all those fun things. And so you sort of just run into problems that you wouldn't normally with a go-to app. And also, you can sort of feature it with employers. So whenever I'm like sort of interviewing for a place, I'll like add in maybe to the email, check out these repos that I've built, probably using technology that you're interested in. Since you've gone to the meetup, sort of know where the industry is going, you can use technologies that you care about and showcase that. So aside from maybe building an app, you can also contribute to open source. And I'm a big fan of open source, so I'm slightly biased. But contributing to open source and getting that on your GitHub profile is really awesome, in my opinion, for interviewing with places, because it shows you, one, actually care about the open source community, two, understand at least somewhat at the surface level enough to commit to an actual repo. And it gets you experience with source control, sort of a review process. Usually you have like test coverage minimums, maximums, you know, for the amount of test coverage that you're adding to. And so when you're going through that process, it's very similar to internal companies. And so it's just a great way to sort of get used to the processes that you deal with. Repos like React and a lot of open source projects sort of have this like first timer tag. They're really going towards like getting people into the open source community, because previously it was somewhat of a hard thing to do, just because you go into a bunch of issues, you want to fix something, and you have to like know 10 like libraries down what things are doing. Whereas these, they sort of pluck out basically issues that would be easy for like a beginner, maybe in the language, library, framework that you can pick up. But maybe you don't feel like actually contributing to open source. That's cool. I didn't contribute to open source for like 2 years ago. So reading open source though is also really awesome, just because the libraries that you use, they sort of seem like magical, right? But then once you actually read the code, you can actually somewhat understand their limits, the problems that you might face with them, and just actually different ways of doing things, right? So like if you're maybe super into object-oriented programming, check out like Lambda, which is completely all functional, and just seeing different ways of implementing things is really helpful, because as I was saying before, like there's 1,000 ways in JavaScript to implement something. There's probably 100 good ones, but the 100 good ones are interesting. All right, and so once you sort of brushed up your GitHub profile and figured out the company that you want to go to, the interview. So I suck at interviews because I always like get nervous and black out. But then the one thing that I keep in mind though is I'm also interviewing them, so it somewhat helps me be slightly less nervous. But so whenever I go in an interview, the things that are sort of important to me are like testing and tech debt, not the actual having tech debt, but getting rid of tech debt. And so one of the things I ask is like, do you have either sprints or days or time periods where rather than features, you focus on tech debt? And it's a good way to sort of see if you fit, because it's basically like dating, right? You're trying to figure out a company that's a match for you. Rather than them just asking questions and sort of it being one-sided, you can figure out if it's a culture fit for you. And towards the end of the interview, usually they have that time period for asking questions. You look actually interested in the company, which is always super helpful, rather than just not any questions. And I don't care. I just want a job, basically. All right, congrats. You have a job or had a job. What do you do now? So the thing that I always do, and actually just started for a second time at Walmart 5 months ago, but so I'm sort of in this period, but keep checking what's out there. So the thing that I've realized about interviewing is like, there's really no downside to interviewing at least a few times a year, just because like either you find a better place that you like more than your current place. By the way, people at Walmart don't listen. Or you become more appreciative to what you have. And so like maybe you figure out, oh, this other company is like really awesome, but I need to learn these certain things. You can sort of see where you're at and where you want to improve. And you can also see sort of if you're being underpaid or overpaid, and whether the skills you're learning are in demand or going out of demand. And all of that is sort of rolled into compensation, which this was sort of my first aha moment when I was getting into my career, because originally I was like, oh, salary is everything, right? And so I just want to optimize for making as much money as possible. And that made me realize, oh, I'm not actually happy with doing this. And so I realized that for me, really learning team and culture are like the main things that I care about. And so even if I take, maybe a lower paying job or a lower title or whatever, which I actually have done, for optimizing those things, it's totally fine. Like it actually helps a lot in happiness to figure out what you value the most. And you can almost, has anyone ever heard of like arbitrage? So it's like finance, but basically buying low, selling high. You can find jobs that maybe pay less, but actually give you more benefits that you care about, where other people maybe optimize for other things, so they're looking for different things than you. All right. So next up, staying up to date on work time. So obviously, this industry moves really fast, and you have to sort of stay up to date or sort of get really into one technology, I guess. But the thing that I realized was like doing it on work time, it's actually better for both of you. Because one, the company loses maybe like 30 minutes a day or an hour a week or something like that. But they're really getting productivity gains for an indefinite period of time as long as they're paying you for that salary, right? And so they're getting more productivity for basically a fixed amount of time, which is super awesome for them. You learn something, so your value actually goes up. And then this is where sort of interviewing multiple times and sort of seeing where you're at benefits you, because once you sort of get to the next level, you're already interviewing, so you can see, oh, I'm at like maybe a senior now or a staff or something like that. And it just keeps them honest. One of the ways that I sort of keep up to date is having an RSS feed on my Chrome new browser thing. And so there's a Panda RSS feed that you can just plug in whatever you want. So Reddit, Hacker News, Product Hunt are my thing. And basically every morning, I just take like 15 to 30 minutes to read over them, click a few articles, see what's interesting. And you can also sort of become an expert in your team by, sharing their articles, showing that you're actually keeping up to date and caring. A few other ways that I sort of like to keep up to date is mobbing and pairing with other people. And so the awesome thing about this is like there's really no downside because you have a safety net. And so like if you run into problems, you just turn to the person next to you or the team next to you and just ask them questions. And so it's a really like simple way of learning a new technology. Maybe you can't do pairing or mobbing, or there's not a team that you're interested in. Grabbing stuff that's sort of tangential to your app is really interesting, and a good way to do that. So, for instance, I do a lot of front-end and node services stuff. One of the things at another company that I wanted to do was basically, everyone's familiar with like Rollbar, it's sort of error handling on the front end. So we couldn't use Rollbar or pretty much any third-party service because the personal data would be shared, and so we had to go through this whole thing. So we were like, all right, we're just going to spin up Grafana, which is like a graphing instance, and InfluxDB, which is a time series database, and create basically Rollbar ourselves. And so finding those things that are sort of around the app, but don't really have anything to do with what you're actually doing day to day, is a really good way, and it benefits, again, the company, benefits you guys and your team. And last of all, sort of going back to GitHub, if you can't do any of these things or in addition to these things, you can always just do a side project, contribute to open source, and read to open source. All right. And the thing that took me the longest time to realize was mentorship. So my first company, we sort of had like a mentoring program, but that was like basically pairing a senior developer to a junior developer. And they didn't really go into much matchmaking, so it didn't really help much. But the thing that I realized was if you want to, or it's really helpful basically to find someone that's where you want to be, either career-wise, life-wise, knowledge-wise, and just pick their brains. So take them out to beers, take them out to lunch, do whatever. And you can ask them questions. Usually people like talking about themselves. Obviously, I'm up here talking about myself. And so like it's helpful for them because they sort of like get a better idea of where it's just good to question them. You get basically it's free advice, and it's, I don't know, in my opinion, it's very rewarding for both sides. And lastly, it's not bad to just have one mentor, it's not bad to have multiple mentors. So for me, I personally have like a career mentor and a life mentor. The career mentor is in a place in his career where I want to be, but not really life, and vice versa for the other one. And so just find people who are basically where you want to be and ask them questions. And then lastly, what I learned was fail a lot. And so I fail all the time. The key for me failing, though, is putting myself in a position to where if I fail, it's not a big deal. So, like, interviewing while you have a job, there's really no downside to it, right? You're either going to be benefited by getting a new job or being more appreciated for your current job. Another example is maybe taking a less stable, maybe at a startup, but more like learning possibilities job. And basically, if you do that, maybe like save 6 months worth of pay or something like that. And so that way, you don't really have to care about like all the risks involved. You can really just like focus on the task ahead. So hopefully this was the first sort of way of mentoring you guys. I appreciate your coming, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. As I said, from the survey results, that's the key everybody's interested in. And I think Mike has some great key points there on, always kind of validate what you're worth, validate what the industry's doing. And there's no better way to do that than to come to events like this and also get involved in interviewing. With that, I want to bring up some individuals from Walmart that have to do with opportunities in Walmart. And with that, Bob and Qatar, welcome up.
No, I'm not going to take a lot of time. I just want to talk about what we're doing at Walmart within my team. So my name is Bob Lowell. I'm the Senior Director for what we call Data Foundation. So Data Foundation basically is in charge of the whole data side of putting things in the cloud, anything stateful inside of the cloud. So we deal with relational database on cloud, NoSQL, messaging, streaming, search indexing, and we build basically build solutions for application teams to be able to plug into really easily. Say, hey, I'm building out an application and here's my requirements. They talk to our Data Foundation consultants. We figure out what the right mix of stuff is for them. Also, we have the ability, just like if you go on AWS, you can deploy your own database. We have that same kind of ability with what we call managed services. So you can just go ahead and deploy a relational database, deploy a search index, whatever you need to do. We build all that automation, all that operational excellence behind the scenes so that application teams don't have to deal with it. We have a frameworks team, Andy and Ina are a part of. They build out the libraries that application teams can use to interface with persistence. And we really focus on polyglot persistence. When you're building things at Walmart scale, you want to protect your source of truth database. So we build systems that enable, I got to go over there.
Sorry, we can't online.
Hi, everybody online. We build systems that enable teams to. We build systems that enable teams to build out scalable persistence at kind of a Walmart scale. And to do that, you really can't go just a traditional single database route. You have to build out systems that allow some of that heterogeneous workload against a database and against the data system to go out to other areas. So it's exciting work. There's a lot of fun opportunities within our group. We're growing. We've got a huge backlog of stuff that we're building. So any interest in this area of the world, I imagine my email address will be available somewhere. blowell@walmart.com, LOWELL, BLOWELL@walmart.com. Give me an email anytime, and I can dive deeper on it and let you know what we got. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I'll make sure to post that on the meetup board and as well on the YouTube when we get that presented later. And with that, Qatar? Yep.
Hey guys, my name is Kedar Deshpande. I lead the program management for customer experience tools. So at Carlsbad location, we have two groups. There's the Data Foundation, which Bob leads. The customer experience tool is led by my manager, Claude Jones. He's on PTO currently. So I lead the program management for that. So customer experience tools is basically, as the name says, we are focused on building different tools which are targeted in three different domains. First one is what we call business tools. So business tools is basically, as you can imagine, Walmart is a large e-commerce company, and we have thousands and thousands of what we call site merchants or category specialists who do manage the different customer experience, whether asset management, taxonomy management, content management, campaign management. So For that, they use our tools developed by us. So in a click of a button, there's a Black Friday, let's say, campaign going on. Some category specialists or the business people, they use our tools, set up some of the campaign, goes live at midnight. So that all happens streamlined through our tools. And this is one of the fields since the Jet and Walmart merger and our new CEO, that area, the category, we are hiring thousands of categories who are using our tools. So the tooling group is also, we are growing significantly. The second area of the tooling is what we also do, the Test Armada, which is our test automation framework. So we have thousands and thousands of developers, and for web as well as mobile, they use our Test Armada, which also we are trying to do open source, so testarmada.io. And so they are onboarding that, which really streamlines the entire CI pipeline and providing different gates. And we are saving millions of dev hours of kind of time from in the testing point of view. The third is the A/B testing. So any feature goes out today on e-commerce, it's industry term, not just in Walmart, it's A/B tested, right? So we build here A/B testing platform called Expo, and it's used by all our web and mobile application developers within Walmart. So really, experience tool, there are 3 pillars: business tools, which is taxonomy, content management, and so on, the asset management, and so on. Second one is the Test Armada, which is really the test automation, and third is the A/B testing platform. We have right now at this side about a couple of positions open, but I'm in the process of opening at least 6 more positions, mostly in the software development area. I mean, we're looking for a node expert as well as some of the front-end expert or combination of full stack, I think. We also have 1 product management, technical product management position, which we're opening, and as well as 1 UX position. So go to walmartjobs.com and jobs. You'll see a couple of positions. In another 2-3 weeks, you'll see a few more openings coming up. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is kedar.deshpande@walmartlabs.com, and maybe I'll give it to you guys as well.
We'll
do that. All right? All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, Qatar. So yes, I'll get those emails posted. Anybody interested in any of those specializations within Walmart, I suggest reaching out to them as well as checking walmart.com and getting the application started with that. On that note, we want to continue with the raffles. So as I said, a lot of these guys have new tutorials coming out, some really excellent stuff, a lot of Apollo and GraphQL stuff as well, and that's really hot right now. So with that, anybody does not have tickets. We want to get tickets for everyone. And then the people that I did give tickets to, I need to get the copy of that ticket. Mike, did you get one? You two one? And, okay, I'll take yours. And you need one. Anybody else need one? And when we're done, I'll get the copy. I'm going to do this in 2 parts here. Everybody have a ticket. One more over here.